Everybody is assuming at this point that they'll probably approve most of the Bitcoin ETFs by the end of the year. Is that's a reasonable assumption at this point?
Big news in cryptocurrency today. It is now much more likely, based on new information, a spot Bitcoin ETF approval could happen.
Yeah, it's going to get approved. We actually think, we're partnered with Invesco on an application. We think it happens this year in 2023.
And just understand that SEC Chair Gary Gensler just commented publicly. I'll share with you this full clip, but why something like this matters to you is because spot Bitcoin ETF approvals could add $1 trillion to the crypto market cap.
Invesco's Salesforce, BlackRock Salesforce, Cathie Wood's Salesforce, Fidelity Salesforce, all out selling Bitcoin.
And with the next approval dates fast approaching, what's changed?
Mike, people are going to say he's talking his book. He owns a lot of Bitcoin. He wants this to happen, obviously. What would you pinpoint and specifically suggest that you're seeing around the approval process that is somehow different today than it was a year ago, than it was 2 or 3 years ago?
The most significant piece was the SEC lost in court, right? The judge said, what are you talking about, SEC? You have a futures ETF and you're saying you can't have a cash ETF. That makes intellectually zero sense. And I think that put the SEC on the back foot. And I think Gensler needs a win. There's a tremendous amount of pressure to do something that is rational. The American public wants this. BlackRock, who's the largest asset manager in the world, is out publicly saying we're going to get this done. And it's, I can't talk specific about conversations our guys are having, and that's on the Invesco side. But talking to all the other people, it just feels like the dialogue with the SEC is all heading in the right direction.
So yes, the SEC just had a major loss against GrayScale in the courts. They have announced they won't appeal. And while Gary Gensler seems to have changed his tune, you tell me, again, I'll share this with you. Let's just be very clear on what the experts are noticing as a difference with the SEC.
But when you say the dialogue with the SEC, have you seen a shift, a fundamental shift in the way the SEC, anecdotally, I imagine, would have to be the only way you'd know this, has changed the approach to thinking about this in light of that lawsuit, which is to say, Lena Khan has lost lawsuits before, in her agency at the FTC. That hasn't shifted the way she thinks about antitrust regulation in the United States.
Yeah, just the public filings back and forth and the comments that you're reading online. People's comments are much more constructive, and when you go to the comment period, what they're asking about all seems much more specific than general. And that seems to be a good sign.
Cathie Wood also explains the change she's seeing with the SEC.
Cathie, you're one of 9 applicants for a spot Bitcoin ETF. It looks like the SEC is going to be forced to approve a spot Bitcoin ETF. What, if any, communications have you had with the SEC about your application? Where are we in this whole thing?
Well, it was publicized and disclosed. I think it was last week that we had responded to the SEC's request for information around our Bitcoin filing, and we responded. And that's basically all we can say. I think many people think the fact that the SEC chose to ask questions is a change in behavior. And therefore, I do think hopes are rising that or a number of Bitcoin ETFs will be approved.
Yeah, my understanding is the court now is going to issue a mandate about how to enforce their decision here to the SEC, and their SEC is going to basically follow that mandate. Everybody is assuming at this point that they'll probably approve most of the Bitcoin ETFs by the end of the year. That's a reasonable assumption at this point? They lost the court case. They chose not to appeal it at this point.
Right. And I do believe maybe the reason they're saying by the end of the year, early next year, I know our final deadline on this filing is January 10th. And so, and I think we're first in line. But as you say, a number of Bitcoin ETFs could be approved at the same time.
But because this is an ongoing story, be sure to click subscribe. We drop a video every single day, keeping you informed. And here's Gary Gensler's latest message when asked about a spot Bitcoin ETF.
Something else that happened last week, or rather didn't happen, was the SEC acting to appeal a court ruling from August in the GrayScale case. GrayScale, of course, trying to convert GBTC into a spot ETF. I know you can't comment on ongoing litigation, but should we still be considering that ongoing litigation given that lack of appeal at this point? And if not, what happens next?
Wait, didn't you just say that you knew I wasn't going to comment on the litigation? But let me just say...
But is it still ongoing since you didn't appeal?
We didn't appeal last Friday. I think that's accurate.
So you could still in the future in another form.
But what we have in front of us, just so that the viewing public understands, we have not one, but multiple, I think it's 8 or 10 filings that the staff and ultimately the commission is considering for what's called exchange-traded products, for Bitcoin to be in a security. So the Bitcoin would be held, and then there would be something called an exchange-traded product, and that would trade on various stock exchanges. And those filings are in front of us. I can't prejudge any one of them, but there's 8 or 10 that we're looking at.
Wow. Like the video, get this information out there. And to me, this is the warmest, most open I've ever seen Gary when talking about Bitcoin spot ETFs. And looking at where we stand today, the next 3 approvals would be in mid-November. Honestly, these 3 aren't the big names. It would be GrayScale, ARK, Bitwise iShares, VanEck, WisdomTree, Invesco, BlackRock, of course. Those have the best chance to me, and many of those approvals are in mid-January. CoinDesk TV explains.
BlackRock, JP Morgan, Barclays, Fidelity, Franklin Templeton. The significance of those names is pretty large, and there are all the firms that have been mentioned alongside crypto headlines in the past week or blockchain. And you compare that to 12 to 18 months ago, and the names that consume crypto headlines are all now bankrupt. So this is what I would consider a new leaf being turned over. And given the SEC chose not to appeal the GrayScale district court loss last Friday, this upcoming Friday on the 20th, that mandate will be released, basically putting the ruling into effect. And so, Fink and all these other kind of top Wall Street firms would not be voicing these public opinions if the SEC were going to deny their ETF applications. BlackRock and Fidelity, they just don't put the reputation on the line like that.
Now, also, I do have to mention the latest altcoin news happening. This channel keeps you updated on both Bitcoin and altcoins, but Polygon has just proposed a council for decentralized governance, names 13 members. So this committee will consist of 13 people, including officials from Coinbase and the ETH Foundation. And this is all to bring leaders from all over crypto, leaders into Polygon. So the biggest names to me would be crypto on-chain sleuth Zach XBT. He's on the council. Anthony Sassano, huge Ethereum bull, on the council. We also have Coinbase. We also have Justin Drake from the ETH Foundation. And what this means to you, this proposal, known as PIP29, will be responsible for the narrow, in-scope, time lock limited changes to system smart contracts implemented on Ethereum for existing and future Polygon protocols, meaning the council will weigh in on future updates, and the council will also execute the community-led process to initiate future upgrades, including those proposed in the frontier phase of Polygon 2.0. Be sure to click subscribe for daily updates, and like always, see you tomorrow.